So you might not know this, but behind the scenes, one of the most important things that has ever happened in the world of finance is happening right now. The FedNow system is officially here.
Federal Reserve finally launching its instant payment service, FedNow.
Should allow households and businesses to send payments and receive money immediately.
This system will turn on instant payments, which means your banks and some of your apps will allow you to send money instantaneously. And that also means you can pay your invoices, your checks won't have 3-day holds on them, you can send money on holidays, on weekends, 24/7, 365 days a year. The FedNow system already has 35 participating banks like JP Chase and Wells Fargo. But the ultimate question is this a good thing or a bad thing for us?
But bottom line, faster payments, good for consumer, right, Steve?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so, but maybe, hopefully, yes, definitely a good thing for consumers. Now, of course, anytime we talk about the Federal Reserve and the central bank, there is a lot of conspiracy theories and fear and confusion over what this system actually is, with a lot of people thinking that it's going to eliminate the need for cash and Venmo and that all transactions will be monitored by the government. And some of those are legitimate concerns. So in today's video, I want to separate some of the fact from fiction and share with you the data behind what this system is actually trying to do, but I also want to highlight some of the legitimate concerns and worries that people are having. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well, come for the finance, and stay for the Federal Reserve. You want to know something funny about the most powerful bank that controls the currency of one of the most powerful countries in the world? There is nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, and it has no reserves. So an important thing about this new system you should know is that it's not something you have to learn how to use, you don't have to opt in, it's not an app you download. If you have a bank account with one of these financial institutions, it's going to be using it behind the scenes automatically. Now here's some interesting context. Before real-time payment systems became a thing, whenever we'd send money from A to B, banks would only send digital IOUs and not real money. But about 5 years ago, the US got its first RTP protocol, short for real-time payment system. And because that system is a little over 5 years old now, about 353 banks and credit unions are using that system today. And just a couple days ago, on July 20th, we got the second ever real-time payment system called the FedNow. And interestingly, both RTP and FedNow do the exact same thing. They both send money in real time without the need to verify those digital IOUs at a cost of just a couple cents per transaction.
When FedNow is fully available and widely used, individuals will be able to instantly receive their paychecks and use them the same day. It can also help workers who aren't on a regular payroll, like gig workers. An Uber driver, for instance, get access to their wages faster.
Now, there are two differences between these systems. RTP has a transaction limit of $1 million, and the FedNow system is $500,000. Now, that doesn't mean anything to most people, because the real difference is in who owns them. The RTP is owned by the clearinghouse, which is owned by 26 of the world's biggest banks. And the FedNow system has only one owner, which is the Federal Reserve. So the question is, if we already had a real-time payment system in place and no one was complaining, why do we need the FedNow? And this is the birth of a conspiracy theory over the one world currency to control the population, and that's the easy way out. The real truth is a lot more complicated, but it does bring us one step closer to a CBDC, a central bank digital currency.
The Chinese last month unveiled the world's first digital currency from a major power. Currency that would not be printed but would exist only in cyberspace on your phone, for example. Is the Fed working on a digital dollar?
We are actually evaluating that. Most major countries are now looking at the possibility of having a digital currency and really asking the question.
So think about it like this. If the FedNow system is the domestic, here-at-home payment settlement system, then a CBDC is the global cross-border version of that system. And in March of 2022, President Joe Biden signed an executive order to create a framework for a central bank digital currency, which brought the US one step closer to its own CBDC that'll be used in bank-to-bank transfers around the world. This project even has a code name. It's called Project Cedar, which completed the 12-week testing period in 2022 called Phase 1. Now, before we get into the conspiracy theories over how the Illuminati are trying to control the world, I want to share with you some of the lesser known information that's inside these documents that no one ever really reads behind why they're trying to create these systems, because there is a problem with our current system. They found that whenever they're trying to send money internationally from A to B, for example, it's very slow and very expensive. The data shows that a bank-to-bank international transaction usually takes 2 days to settle, which comes with it counterparty and credit risk. And that's because when a payment is sent internationally, that payment needs not 1, not 2, but sometimes up to 3 intermediary middlemen banks to verify that transaction while it goes through several currency conversions. So it's not exactly efficient, it's not always safe, and it's definitely not fast, even for the banks. And they figured out, after testing in phase 1 of this Cedar project, that they could get that transaction down from 2 days to under 10 seconds and only cost them a couple pennies. Makes them so much more efficient to use these CBDCs. Now, these are just essentially glorified DLTs, or distributed ledger technologies, which is the same thing that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have been using for a really long time now. And now they're in phase 2 of the Cedar project. And this is the development phase, and the US is not the only country in the world that's doing this. The entire global banking system is racing to develop their own CBDC. 11 countries, in fact, have already launched a CBDC, 32 countries are in development, and 46 are researching, but data shows that more and more countries are getting involved by the month. Overall, a total of 130 countries, representing 98% of the world's total GDP, are in some way involved in the process of making one. Now, the byproduct of this quote-unquote new system that isn't actually new is that it gives the banks and the government a lot of superpowers that people are not exactly comfortable with. And when I made a video about the FedNow payment system a couple months ago when they announced it, people were concerned. And now that this system is here, which will eventually lead to the creation of a CBDC, people are even more concerned about the risks and where we could eventually go next. And I want to show you those risks through the context of trust, because it's no secret that most people don't trust the US government, but it wasn't always like that. Back in the late 1950s, 77% of people trusted the US government to do the right thing, but over the coming decades, that trust has been going down to only 20%. So in a room of 5 people, you might find one of them who trusts the US government. Now, as I was reading the comment section of my last video about this same topic, I pulled together some of the more interesting ones that I want to share with you. Like, a government big enough to give you everything you want is a government big enough to take away everything that you have. And this is technically true. Let's fast forward sometime in the future where cash is a relic that we'd find in a museum, and the only thing we'd have to pay with are government digital currencies. In that version of reality, the Fed would have absolute power to take away our money with the flip of a switch. And if you're thinking to yourself, the government would never do that, that's a conspiracy theory. It's not. The US government tried to do exactly that in 1933. They tried to confiscate everybody's gold with Executive Order 6102. Give it up or be fined. But you don't even have to look that far back in history to see an example of this same thing, because the Canadian government tried a version of this in 2022.
Here we go now. In Canada, police in the capital city of Ottawa, they've arrested nearly 200 protesters over the weekend.
Ottawa's police chief says they will track down and punish anyone who is involved in the protest. And truckers who have not been arrested are dealing with the fallout of frozen bank accounts and seized assets.
They've taken my truck. I don't know where it is. On Friday, they locked up my personal and trucking business account. And then also we have another business and they locked that account up too. And it had nothing to do with it.
Now, regardless of that situation and whether it was warranted or not, the fact that money is programmable and it can be frozen and taken away from you is something that everyone should be concerned about. But let's put fear-mongering aside for just a second and let me share with you some reality. The truth is that our banking system already has the power to do all of this in the case of illegal activity like money laundering or anything else they want. I've even had banks lock me out of my own accounts because I was sending money to crypto websites. So the point is, banks already had the power to freeze our money. This is not a new concern. So instead, we should be paying close attention if the government tries to phase out other forms of payment. Because the concern is when physical money disappears, so will our freedoms. Another thing that's reasonable to be concerned about is control and oversight over financial transactions. For example, the digital yuan comes with an expiration date, and you either use it or you lose it, which is one of the ways the government can program money to control inflation. It would also allow the government to see everything we're up to. Technically, that's already the case with tech companies, and they know everything about us, which they could share with the government. But at least for now, there's a layer of protection between ourselves and the government, and corporations need our trust because we vote with dollars. It's in their best financial interest to protect our privacy and not sell it to someone else. But having a CBDC-only system removes any kind of middleman layer that would protect us. So those are all the downsides, but on the bright side, a CBDC would make it easier for the government to send stimulus and aid, and it would lower the cost of banking and make it more accessible. It could also help with tax revenues for the government because we technically wouldn't have to file anything. So those are some convenient benefits for consumers, but it also kind of reminds me of a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Ultimately, this system is coming whether we like it or not, because the US needs to stay competitive with the rest of the world. So rather than freak out about it, I think it's better to pay attention to the government not phasing out other forms of payment. As long as we have a choice, we should be fine. And luckily for now, the Federal Reserve is not forcing other commercial banks to participate in the FedNow payment system. And you can see that because both Citigroup and Bank of America still haven't signed up, at least for now. So we're probably years and years away before we get an actual CBDC, but it is still really important to pay close attention to what's going on. And even more importantly, focus on your own investment journey. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to grab your free stocks. Links are down below. Go track them automatically with a spreadsheet link down below in my Patreon. Love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love to see you back here on Monday, Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. See you soon. Bye-bye.